In a world where royal duties often overshadow personal passions, one Saturday afternoon would prove that even princesses need their moments of pure, unbridled joy. The roar of 82,000 voices would soon become the soundtrack to something far more meaningful than just another rugby match. The morning light filtered through the tall windows of Kensington Palace as Catherine, Princess of Wales, stood before her wardrobe, contemplating the day ahead. Today wasn't about state dinners or charity galas. Today was about rugby, passion, and representing England in one of the most anticipated matches of the Six Nations Championship. She pulled out a crisp white England rugby shirt, the red rose emblem sitting proudly on the chest. This wasn't just clothing, it was armor for battle, albeit a different kind of battle than what her royal duties usually required. The shirt represented something authentic, something that connected her to millions of fans who would be watching, hoping, and believing alongside her. Catherine had always been drawn to sports, but rugby held a special place in her heart. It wasn't just the physicality of the game or the strategic brilliance required, it was the spirit. Rugby players fought for every inch, supported their teammates unconditionally, and faced defeat with the same grace they showed in victory. These were values she tried to instill in her own children, values that resonated deeply with her personal philosophy. As she prepared for the journey to Twickenham Stadium, memories of previous matches flooded back. She remembered her first appearance as patron of the Rugby Football Union, how nervous she had felt, worried about saying the wrong thing or not understanding the intricacies of the game well enough. Those fears seemed almost laughable now. Over the years, she had become genuinely knowledgeable about rugby, studying players' statistics, understanding tactical formations, and developing relationships with coaches and team management. The drive to Twickenham was filled with anticipation. Her security detail maintained their professional silence, but Catherine could sense their excitement too. Even the most stoic protection officers couldn't help but get caught up in the atmosphere of a Six Nations matchday. The streets were already filling with supporters wearing white shirts, carrying flags, and singing songs that would echo through the stadium in just a few hours. England versus Ireland was never just a rugby match. It was a clash of philosophies, styles, and national pride. Ireland had been enjoying a golden period in their rugby history, with their team playing some of the most exciting and effective rugby anyone had ever seen. They moved the ball with precision, their forwards dominated in the loose, and their backs could score tries from anywhere on the field. England, meanwhile, had been rebuilding, searching for the perfect combination of experience and youth that could challenge the best teams in the world. Catherine understood the pressure her team was under. The English public expected nothing less than total commitment, brilliant execution, and victory. But she also understood that sport, at its core, was about more than winning and losing. It was about inspiring people, bringing communities together, and showing that with enough dedication and teamwork, anything was possible. Arriving at Twickenham, Catherine was immediately struck by the atmosphere. The stadium's imposing structure seemed to vibrate with energy, even before the match began. Thousands of fans were already making their way through the gates, their voices creating a constant hum of excitement and anticipation. Street vendors sold scarves, programs, and hot food, while children clutched rugby balls, hoping to catch a glimpse of their heroes. The princess was escorted through the players' tunnel, a tradition she particularly enjoyed. Walking the same path that the players would take in a few hours gave her a sense of connection to the game, a reminder that despite her royal status, today she was simply another supporter hoping for her team to perform at their best. In the England dressing room, she met with head coach Steve Borthwick and several of the senior players. The atmosphere was focused but relaxed, exactly what she wanted to see before such an important match. Captain Owen Farrell approached her with a warm smile, and they discussed the team's preparation, their confidence levels, and their respect for the Irish opposition. Catherine was impressed by the professionalism and maturity of the players. These young men understood the weight of expectation on their shoulders, but they weren't intimidated by it. Instead, they seemed energized by the opportunity to represent their country in front of a home crowd, with their patron watching from the stands. The conversation turned to the specific challenges Ireland would present. Their fly-half Jonathan Sexton was a master tactician, capable of controlling a game's tempo and exploiting any defensive weakness. Their pack of forwards was arguably the strongest in world rugby, capable of dominating the set-piece battle that often determined the outcome of tight matches. most importantly, they played with a confidence and fluidity that came from years of success and mutual understanding. But England had their own weapons. Their backline possessed genuine pace and creativity, their forwards were beginning to match the physicality that had made English rugby famous worldwide, and they were playing at home, with the full support of 82,000 passionate fans. As Catherine made her way to the royal box, she reflected on how much this role meant to her. Being patron of the Rugby Football Union wasn't just another ceremonial position, it was a genuine responsibility that she took seriously. She studied the game, understood the players' journeys, and felt the same emotions that every supporter experienced during crucial matches. The royal box at Twickenham offered the perfect view of the entire pitch, but Catherine often found herself wishing she could be down among the regular supporters, experiencing their raw passion and unfiltered reactions. The royal box was comfortable and prestigious, but it sometimes felt removed from the authentic emotional connection that made rugby so special. Looking around the stadium as it continued to fill, Catherine saw families passing down their love of rugby from generation to generation. Fathers explained the rules to young sons, mothers cheered with the same intensity as their teenage daughters, and grandparents shared stories of legendary matches from decades past. This was what she wanted for her own children, not just an appreciation for sport, but an understanding of how it could bring people together and create lasting memories. The warm-up period began, and both teams took the field for their final preparations. The sound that erupted from the crowd was deafening, a wall of noise that seemed to physically push against anyone standing in its path. Catherine felt goosebumps rise on her arms as she watched the players go through their routines, each movement purposeful and precise. Ireland looked supremely confident during their warm-up, moving the ball with the ease and familiarity that came from years of playing together. Their communication was minimal but effective, each player understanding his role and executing it perfectly. England, by contrast, seemed to be putting extra intensity into every drill, every sprint, every practice lineout. They were channeling their nervous energy into focused preparation. The anthems were approaching, and Catherine knew that this was when the real emotion would begin to show. God Save the King would ring out across Twickenham, followed by Ireland's Amran na Bhvn, and then, the real battle would commence. As the final minutes before kickoff ticked away, Catherine found herself thinking about the broader significance of this match. Rugby was more than just a game, it was a metaphor for life itself. It required courage in the face of physical danger, intelligence to solve complex tactical problems, and teamwork to achieve goals that no individual could accomplish alone. The players were making their final preparations in the tunnel, and soon they would emerge to face not just their opponents, but the hopes and dreams of millions of supporters. Catherine felt privileged to be there, to witness this moment when sport transcended entertainment and became something approaching art. The stadium announcer's voice boomed across Twickenham, and Catherine knew that in just moments, her team would take the field for one of the most important matches of their careers. The Princess of Wales was ready to cheer them on with every fibre of her being. The tunnel doors burst open and 30 players emerged into the cauldron of noise that was Twickenham Stadium. Catherine felt her heart skip as she watched the England team jog onto the sacred turf, their white jerseys brilliant under the afternoon sun. The sound that greeted them was unlike anything she had experienced before. 82,000 voices united in support, creating a wall of noise that seemed to shake the very foundations of the stadium. Owen Farrell led his team out with the calm authority that had made him one of England's most respected captains. Behind him, a mixture of experienced internationals and exciting newcomers jogged in formation, each player focused on the task ahead. Catherine could see the concentration in their faces, but also the excitement. This was what they had trained for their entire lives, the chance to represent England in front of their home crowd against one of the strongest teams in world rugby. Ireland followed shortly after, and their reception was markedly different. While respectful, the crowd's response was muted compared to the explosion that had greeted England. The Irish players seemed unaffected by this, moving with the confident swagger of a team that had dominated European rugby for several seasons. Their captain, Johnny Sexton, looked around the stadium with the calm assurance of someone who had performed on this stage many times before. The anthems began, and Catherine stood with everyone else in the royal box as God Save the King rang out across Twickenham. She sang along, feeling the emotion of the moment wash over her. This wasn't just protocol, it was genuine patriotic feeling, enhanced by the knowledge that her team was about to face one of their biggest challenges of the year. During Amran na Bhvan, Catherine found herself studying the Irish players, noting how they seemed to draw strength from their national anthem. Their body language suggested complete confidence, the kind that came from years of success and mutual trust. She hoped that England's players were feeling equally inspired by their home crowd and the support surrounding them. The coin toss, the final team huddles, and then, the moment arrived. Referee Wayne Barnes raised his whistle to his lips, and Catherine felt the entire stadium hold its breath. The first whistle of a rugby match was always magical, but this one felt particularly significant. Everything that had led to this moment, months of training, weeks of preparation, years of dreams, would now be decided over the next 80 minutes. England kicked off, and immediately Catherine could see the intensity that both teams brought to the contest. The collision as Ireland's fullback caught the ball and was tackled by charging English forwards was bone-jarring, the sound carrying clearly even to the royal box. This was going to be a physical battle of the highest order. Ireland's first possession demonstrated why they were considered among the world's best. Their forwards secured the ball quickly, their scrum half delivered it crisply to Sexton, and, within seconds they were moving the ball through multiple phases, probing for weaknesses in England's defensive line. Catherine found herself leaning forward, her royal composure temporarily forgotten as she became absorbed in the tactical battle unfolding below. England's defense held firm, forcing Ireland to kick for territory rather than score. But, even in this early exchange, Catherine could see the quality of decision-making that made Ireland so dangerous. They weren't rushing their attacks or trying to score from impossible positions. Instead, they were methodically building pressure, confident that opportunities would eventually present themselves. England's first real attack came after winning a lineout in Irish territory. Their forwards drove powerfully, gaining precious meters through sheer physical commitment. Catherine watched as the English pack worked in perfect synchronization, each player contributing to the collective effort. When the ball eventually came back to their backs, there was genuine pace and creativity in their handling. The opening 20 minutes established the pattern of the match. Ireland controlled possession and territory through superior tactical kicking and face play, while England looked dangerous whenever they managed to get sustained attacking opportunities. Both defenses were holding firm, but Catherine could sense that tries would come. The quality of attacking play from both teams was too high for the game to remain scoreless for long. Ireland struck first with a penalty kick after England was caught offside at a ruck. Sexton's kick was perfect, splitting the uprights from 40 meters out with the kind of technical precision that had made him one of the world's best fly-halves. Catherine felt disappointment wash over her, but also appreciation for the skill she had just witnessed. England's response was immediate and impressive. From the restart, they retained possession through multiple phases, their forwards carrying powerfully while their backs moved the ball with increasing confidence. Catherine found herself standing as England approached Ireland's try line, the crowd's noise reaching levels that made normal conversation impossible. The try, when it came, was a masterpiece of collective effort. England's pack drove over from close range, with their hooker touching down after several phases of controlled aggression. Catherine jumped to her feet with everyone else in the royal box, her usual composure completely abandoned in the face of pure sporting joy. The conversion was successful, and England led for the first time in the match. The response from the crowd was extraordinary. Catherine had attended many sporting events during her royal duties, but she had never experienced anything quite like this. The noise wasn't just loud, it was physical, pressing against her body and creating an atmosphere of pure electric excitement. She could see why players often spoke about the Twickenham crowd as being worth extra points. The support was so intense that it felt like having an additional player on the field. Ireland's response showed their championship quality. Rather than panicking or changing their game plan, they continued to play with the patient precision that had brought them so much success. Their next attack was a thing of beauty, 15 phases of rugby that moved the ball from one side of the field to the other, stretching England's defense until it finally snapped. When Ireland's winger crossed for their first try, Catherine felt the stadium deflate slightly. It wasn't that the crowd gave up supporting England, but the recognition that they were facing genuinely world-class opposition was palpable. Ireland's try had been scored with such skill and precision that even England supporters had to admire its quality. The match continued at breakneck pace, with both teams throwing everything into their attacks. Catherine found herself completely absorbed in the tactical battle, noting how each team adapted to the other's strategies. When Ireland kicked for territory, England looked to run the ball back. When England tried to play at a faster tempo, Ireland slowed the game down with their superior ball retention skills. By halftime, Ireland led by 3 points, but Catherine felt that the score didn't fully reflect the closeness of the contest. Both teams had created genuine scoring opportunities, both defenses had made crucial interventions, and both sets of supporters had been given plenty to cheer about. During the interval, Catherine had the opportunity to visit the England dressing room briefly. The atmosphere was focused but positive. The players knew they were in a tough contest, but they also knew they were performing well enough to win. Coach Borthwick was calm and precise in his instructions, identifying specific areas where adjustments could be made for the second half. What struck Catherine most was the quiet confidence of the younger players. Rather than being overwhelmed by the occasion, they seemed to be embracing it. The combination of home support and royal patronage wasn't creating pressure, it was providing inspiration. The second half began with England showing renewed intensity. Their first attack of the half was their best sequence of rugby so far, moving the ball through multiple phases with pace and precision that had Ireland scrambling to defend. Catherine found herself on her feet again as England created a clear overlap, only to see the final pass go forward in the excitement of the moment. Ireland's response was clinical. They kicked for touch, won their lineout, and, within minutes, had scored their second try through a perfectly executed move that left England's defense completely beaten. Catherine felt her heart sink as she watched the Irish players celebrate, knowing that her team now faced a significant deficit with the clock ticking away. But England's response showed the character that Catherine had hoped to see. Rather than dropping their heads, they increased their intensity, throwing everything into their attacks with a desperation that was both admirable and effective. The crowd responded to their team's commitment, creating noise levels that seemed to reach new heights every few minutes. The final quarter of the match was some of the most exciting rugby Catherine had ever witnessed. Both teams were playing with total commitment, knowing that every decision, every tackle, every pass could determine the outcome. The physical commitment from both sets of players was extraordinary, and Catherine found herself amazed by their ability to maintain such intensity for the full 80 minutes. As the clock entered the final 10 minutes, Catherine realized she was experiencing something special, not just a rugby match, but a genuine sporting classic that would be remembered for years to come. The final 10 minutes of the match transformed Twickenham into something beyond a mere sporting venue. It became a cathedral of hope, desperation, and pure human drama. Catherine found herself gripping the rail of the royal box, her knuckles white with tension, as England mounted what could be their final attacking opportunity of the match. Down by 8 points with time running out, England had possession deep in Irish territory. Catherine could see the exhaustion on every player's face, but also the determination that separated international rugby players from ordinary athletes. These men were drawing on reserves of energy and willpower that they didn't even know they possessed, driven by the knowledge that 82,000 people were willing them to succeed. The English forwards began a series of pick-and-drive attacks, each player taking the ball and smashing into the Irish defensive line with everything they had left. Metre by metre, phase by phase, they edged closer to Ireland's try line. Catherine found herself holding her breath with each carry, knowing that one mistake, one turnover, would end England's hopes of victory. Ireland's defense was magnificent in its desperation. Their forwards threw their bodies into every tackle with a commitment that bordered on reckless, while their backs swept across the field to cut off any possible attacking angle. Johnny Sexton could be heard barking instructions, orchestrating his team's defensive efforts with the authority of someone who had won and lost matches in exactly these circumstances. The crowd's noise had reached levels that Catherine didn't think were humanly possible. Every person in the stadium was on their feet, contributing to a wall of sound that seemed to physically push the England players forward. Catherine could see tears in the eyes of some supporters, men and women who had invested so much emotional energy in their team's performance that the outcome felt genuinely life-changing. With 5 minutes remaining, England finally broke through. A perfectly timed pass created a gap in Ireland's defense, and England's centre powered over for a try that brought Twickenham to the edge of madness. Catherine jumped higher than she had ever jumped before, her royal dignity completely forgotten in the face of pure sporting joy. The conversion would be crucial. A successful kick would bring England within 1 point, setting up a grandstand finish that would live in rugby folklore. Owen Farrell, England's captain and goalkicker, placed the ball with the calm precision that had made him one of the most reliable kickers in world rugby. Catherine watched as he went through his pre-kick routine, the same sequence of movements he had performed thousands of times before. The entire stadium fell silent, 82,000 people holding their breath as one man prepared to attempt a kick that could change everything. The ball sailed between the uprights with room to spare, and Catherine felt the stadium explode around her. England were now just 1 point behind, and, with 3 minutes still remaining, anything was possible. She had witnessed many dramatic sporting moments during her time as a royal patron, but nothing had prepared her for the raw emotional intensity of this moment. Ireland's restart was crucial, and they executed it perfectly. Rather than kicking deep and giving England possession, they kept the ball short and regathered it themselves. This tactical decision showed the rugby intelligence that had made them such a successful team in pressure situations. They trusted their ability to make the right decisions. What followed was a masterclass in game management from the Irish team. They didn't try to score another try. Instead, they focused on maintaining possession and territory, forcing England to make desperate attempts to regain the ball. Every ruck became a battle, every tackle a potential turning point, every pass a calculated risk. Catherine found herself analyzing the tactical battle with an intensity she had never brought to a sporting event before. She could see how Ireland's experience in these situations was serving them well. Their decision-making remained calm and rational even under the most intense pressure. England, by contrast, were taking bigger risks, knowing that time was running out and they needed to create something special. With 2 minutes left, England won a penalty in Irish territory. The decision was crucial: should they kick for goal and take the lead, or kick for touch and go for a try that would put the match beyond doubt? Catherine watched as Owen Farrell consulted with his forwards, weighing options that would be dissected and analyzed for years to come regardless of the outcome. They chose to kick for touch, backing their lineout and driving game to create a try-scoring opportunity. It was a decision that showed courage and ambition, but also carried enormous risk. If they failed to score from this position, Ireland would likely win the match. The lineout was perfect, England's throw finding its target with precision despite the pressure of the moment. Their forwards formed a maul and began driving toward Ireland's try line, carrying with them not just the ball but the hopes of everyone in the stadium wearing white. Ireland's defense was heroic. Their forwards absorbed the English drive with a desperation that spoke to years of experience in these crucial moments. Meter by meter, phase by phase, they held their ground, refusing to allow England the score that would win the match. Catherine could see the clock on the stadium display showing just seconds remaining. The referee's whistle could end the match at any moment, and England were still meters away from Ireland's try line. The tension was unbearable. She found herself wishing she could close her eyes and only open them when the result was decided, but she couldn't look away from the drama unfolding below. England's final attack was everything rugby could be at its best: courage, skill, teamwork, and determination, all compressed into a few seconds of pure sporting theater. They moved the ball through multiple phases, each pass carrying the weight of national expectation, each tackle potentially decisive. When the final whistle blew, Catherine felt a complex mixture of emotions wash over her. England had lost by a single point, but they had played with a courage and commitment that had earned them something more valuable than victory: the respect of everyone who had witnessed their performance. The Irish players celebrated with the restrained joy of professionals who knew how difficult it had been to achieve their victory. They embraced their English opponents with genuine respect, recognizing the quality of rugby they had been part of. This was what Catherine loved most about rugby: the way it could produce fierce competition while maintaining sporting dignity. As Catherine made her way down to the field to congratulate both teams, she reflected on what she had witnessed. This hadn't just been a rugby match, it had been a demonstration of human potential, showing what people could achieve when they combined skill, courage, and teamwork in pursuit of a common goal. The England players were devastated by their narrow defeat, but Catherine could see pride in their performance alongside their disappointment. They had given everything to their country, playing with a passion and commitment that had inspired everyone who watched them. In many ways, their brave defeat had been more valuable than an easy victory would have been. Meeting with the Irish players, Catherine was struck by their humility in victory. They spoke with genuine respect about England's performance, acknowledging how close the match had been and how much they had been pushed by their opponents. This was the spirit of rugby at its finest, fierce competition followed by mutual respect. The crowd was beginning to disperse, but many supporters remained in their seats, reluctant to leave after witnessing such an extraordinary contest. Catherine could see groups of fans from both countries sharing drinks and stories, their national rivalry temporarily set aside in appreciation of what they had all experienced together. As she prepared to leave Twickenham, Catherine realized that this match would stay with her forever. Not because of the result, but because of the way it had demonstrated sport's unique ability to bring out the best in people, players and spectators alike. The courage shown by both teams, the passion of the supporters, and the respect displayed in both victory and defeat had created something genuinely special. The drive back to Kensington Palace gave Catherine time to process everything she had experienced. Rugby had always been more than just a game to her, but today had reinforced why she felt so passionate about her role as patron of the Rugby Football Union. It wasn't about the ceremonial aspects or the social obligations, it was about being part of something that could inspire people to be better than they thought possible. The messages of congratulation and commiseration were already beginning to arrive, from rugby officials, players, and supporters who had shared in the afternoon's drama. But Catherine knew that the real value of the day wouldn't be measured in words or gestures, it would be seen in the way the performance inspired young players across the country to dream of representing England themselves. That evening, as Catherine reflected on the match over dinner with her family, she tried to explain to her children what made the day so special. It wasn't the excitement of the close finish or even the quality of rugby they had witnessed, it was the way sport could bring people together in pursuit of something greater than individual success. The loss would sting for England's players and supporters, but Catherine knew that the way they had fought, the courage they had shown, and the inspiration they had provided would ultimately be more valuable than any victory. This was what rugby could be at its best, a vehicle for demonstrating the very finest qualities of human nature, win or lose.